Welcome, everyone, to another episode of REI Uncovered. I have a very, very special guest today, Jason Williams. He is a fellow Delawarean, right? You're still in Delaware, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
Delaware.
I got a fellow Delawarean here today, and I'm excited to have him roast me in my business. Uh, we'll see how it goes, maybe a little bit. But thank you for joining the episode today, Jason. I've always respected you. I've known you for many years, and I appreciate you doing this here.
Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you for the invite. We have known
Absolutely.
each other for quite some time, and I have kicked your dick in the dirt quite a bit. So I remember the early days of those long, painful conversations. But look how you're doing well for yourself, man. Out in Cali, got married. I see. I see you doing the podcast. Yeah, see you online doing some things. I know. I just remember. I meant to ask you about this one time. You sent me something, some link or something, and I clicked on it. And I'm not a techie guy at all, so you can explain how this happened. But I could not get you off my computer screen for 3 months. Like, it's like I would click on something, yeah, and it was like an avatar of you making that smile right now, and it would just pop on my screen. I was like, how can I get this off? Like, this guy's like here all the time. So
I'm always watching you, bro. I'm always watching you. You're not the first person to tell me that. Yeah. That's you must have went to my website or something. I was doing a lot of remarketing at the time. So when you go to my website and you click off it, my little college, photo picture follows you around the internet. That's what it was.
Yeah,
but
it would bounce. Yeah. It would like bounce on the screen. I'm just like, I'm on Amazon and your head is like bouncing. Or I would go to Google and I'm like, okay, I get it. But it was like 3 months. I think I messaged you or I sent you a text. I was like, dude, how do you stop this?
That's hilarious, dude. That's hilarious.
Hey, it's ingenious though. I mean, if I want to sell a house, I'd be like, let me click on this guy because he's here all the time.
A trustworthy face, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right. Look at that smile.
Hey,
right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So my first question for you, well, let's give a little intro. Let's give a little intro first. Can you just tell people kind of about your business in real estate, obviously, kind of what you do now, maybe a little bit about the scale, what you do. I will say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I consider you one of the top real estate investors in Delaware, if not the top. And I feel like you're kind of in the shadows a little bit. I don't see you at the meetings. You don't hear Jason Williams' name thrown out, but I know you know your shit and you're doing deals. You're like the guru in the shadows, like pulling the strings and making shit happen. And I've always appreciated that about you. So anyway, with that context, do you agree with that? Do you and can you tell a little bit about your business, maybe?
All right, it's funny you say that because that's on purpose. Like I always say, I'm like the Bruce Wayne of real estate. Like I'm just behind the scenes. Like nobody knows. Or like I would tell sellers all the time. They would be like, "I hope to meet you one day," and I was like, "Nah, man. I'm like Charlie's from Charlie's Angels. I'm just a voice. Like you're never gonna meet me. I'm kind of behind the scenes, and it's weird because I'll have like local people, just regular guys that I'll like come across and they'll, what do you do for a living? And, I'll say I'll do real estate investing. They'll say, oh, I know some guy who's doing that. And it's like, I know the guy because I'm doing this deal behind the scenes. Like I'm handling the funding or the structure, or I'm kind of facilitating the whole thing. And I was like, yeah, I know him, but I'm kind of the one who's running the show there. But just to give, so just business background or personal background?
A little bit of both, man.
It kind of goes together. So, all right. So I've been in Delaware since 1983. July of 1983, I moved here. So I'm not a true Delawarean as far as born here, but I've been here 40 years, almost 39 years. Grew up extremely poor. Did not know I was poor. When you're poor, you don't know. And so nobody in my family owned anything. Everybody rented. We always had a piece of crap car that was clunking down the road that you could hear coming. And but I was always a smart guy. My mom was like really, really big into education. So I was always like honor roll or dean's list or whatever. And I got a scholarship to University of Delaware, got a free ride based on my grades. And, I was always a worker. So I always had a job and I got made fun of because I didn't have a social life. I was working like 2 jobs while I was going to UD full time. And when you're poor, you kind of get tired of it. You kind of get tired of not being able to go to the movies or go to a restaurant or just the things that we kind of take for granted. We kind of like just get tired. For me, I got tired of it. when I come from old school where you have to court a girl, like you have to meet a girl and you have to take her out and you have to talk to her. And girls like things. They like to go places. They like to do things. And I didn't have money to do that. So one day I got tired of kind of living on campus. And because I was on scholarship, they were just going to cut me a check. So I was like, I'll just live off campus. I'll find a place to rent. And I found it was back then newspapers. And it was a newspaper ad for this guy renting out this house for like $1,500. But they were pieces of crap houses. It was like 4 of them right next to each other. Boom, 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 boom. Now, mind you, at the time I was working 2 jobs. They were 2 part-time jobs. So I'm really working full-time, going to school full-time. My checks are $300 every 2 weeks. Literally $600 a month is what I'm making. And this guy was renting these houses out for $1,500 a piece. And I was like, geez, he's making like $6 grand a month. And he's just going to the mailbox and I'm busting my ass making $300 every 2 weeks. So that kind of sparked it in me, like just the whole real estate intrigueness, if that's a word, the intrigue of real estate sparked right there. I didn't rent those houses, but that kind of started it. And I started reading books and talking to people, but I was really scared because again, I didn't have anybody I could go to. I didn't have anybody say, hey, mom, how did you buy your house? Or hey, dad, how did you buy your house? Or,
no social media, right? I mean, it was back in the 80s, right?
This is like 94.
94. Yeah, it was like Carlton Sheets or something. Was he like
the
only one?
See, I didn't want to old school it, but yeah, Carlton Sheets. He was the only infomercial. So if anybody doesn't know what an infomercial is, because they don't really do them anymore.
Right.
I know your audience is probably a little younger. Yeah. But back then they would have infomercials, like basically 30-minute commercials that would come on every night, like 1 o'clock in the morning to like, this is when TV used to go off, right? When TV used to turn off at 1 o'clock in the morning. I know people don't remember that, but they would have infomercials. So that was like the only thing you could see, but Carlton Sheets was there. So I would watch his infomercial and I actually bought his course. I still have it. Didn't do anything with it. It was like super complicated. It was like over the top complicated. It was like over my head, a lot of jargon that I didn't understand. But I did make the effort, at least. I did take the step forward as far as trying to learn the real estate business. And in 98, a buddy of mine had saw an infomercial on TV. I had been talking to him about, getting into business. And he saw an infomercial. And it's funny in hindsight. It was an infomercial with these midgets. These like multi-millionaire real estate midget guys. And he was like, yo, did you see the infomercial with the midgets? Like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, I thought he was like joking, but it was a course. And they never have these courses in your area. It's always in like Oklahoma or Idaho. It's never anywhere local. My buddy was like, well, they're actually having it up in Philly. Now, again, this is before GPS. This is before apps. You had to know where you're going. You had to have a map book, or you had to kind of know where you were going. So I was like, man, I don't really know my way around Philly. And he was like, man, I'll take you. And we went there, and that was my first time seeing a true millionaire, like someone that was truly a multi-millionaire person. In my mind, I always thought that they were like, a lot of gold chains and a lot of jewelry and all these flashy guys. And he was just like a regular guy. And I was like, that guy's a millionaire? Like, that's the dude? And then he kind of just
the midgets with him or no?
No, the midgets weren't there.
Okay.
I did see them later, but they weren't there. Actually, one of them just died a couple years ago. The Rice brothers is what who they were. But he went over like a real easy lease option strategy, and it just made common sense. It was just like real easy peasy, common sense. And then they were selling the course at the end of the seminar. It was like $400. It was $400. And I just had that spark. I just bought that course. I went home, I listened to it. I played it like every day. And then I just said, I'm going to do this. Like, because again, I was poor. So I was like, okay, I'm tired of living this life. Like, I don't want to live this for the rest of my life. Like, working all the time. Like, you start thinking like, where's my life going to be? And at the time I wasn't married. I didn't have children. But you start thinking about those things, about how's my life going to be? And then it took me 9 months to get my first deal. I was one of those guys, kind of taking it back a little bit, because people don't see me this way now. I had horrible self-esteem as a child, like horrible self-esteem, like suicidal, like I hate life, I don't want to live, So it was really difficult for me to actually speak to people or talk to people. So for me to do this business where you have to talk to people, it was difficult for me. So it took me 9 months to get my first deal. And of course, as you know, sellers don't ask you the questions that you think they're going to ask you. You think they're going to ask you the super complicated stuff that's going to be like, oh my God, I don't really know what this guy's saying. They usually don't really give a shit. They're like,
And I
sign,
trust you. Yeah.
yeah, it's all about, if they trust you or not. So it took me 9 months to do my first deal. I did that deal. I made like $3,000. I remember that was the most. No, I'm sorry. I made $5,000. I did a lease option. A tenant buyer gave me 5,000. I remember that was the most money I ever had in my life. Like I had never seen that amount of money ever. And I bought something. I don't know what I bought out. And then after that, but then I knew I could do it after that. After I got
right.
See, the key is getting past your first deal. Once you get past your first deal, I think it's a lot easier because now you've proven it to yourself that you can do it. It's not this pie in the sky, unrealistic thing. You've actually produced something. And then I just never stopped. Now, your initial question, I think, was, what does my business look like now? I do a lot of foreclosures. Probably 90% of what we do is short sales, where we basically cut a deal with the bank and we buy them, and then I usually rehab them and resell them. That's probably 90% of what I do right now. But I mean, I've done every deal under the sun other than commercial. I'm an easy peasy guy. I like to keep stuff simple. So multifamilies and apartments and all that, that's kind of, I'm good. Just give me like a regular single family house,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what is is it all in Delaware, or are you doing multiple states?
Nah, man, I just stay in. I feel like there's enough in Delaware, man. Like, see, that's another thing that kind of baffles me when I have these conversations with people. They kind of like shoot themselves down before they start. Oh man, I got to go out of state because there's not enough deals here. And remember when the Powerball, like a couple years, was like $1 billion? I don't even remember that. It was like 1 point.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation with somebody one time, and I said, well, let me ask you this. If you won the Powerball and you won this $1.2 billion, do you think you would be able to buy every house in the state of Delaware? Like every single house is available in the state of Delaware. Do you think you'd be able to buy that with that 1.2 billion? And the guy was like, no. Okay. So it doesn't really matter. There's still going to be an abundance of houses. So even if you had 1.2 billion, Tim is still going to be able to buy a house. Jason's going to, you know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. So I never really got caught up in the whole competition thing. Honestly, anytime I've gone out of state, I've only gone out of state like on one hand, like Maryland, Pennsylvania, or Jersey. It's always kind of bit me in the ass, where it's like a pain in the ass. It's like, why did I do this, man? Like, I got to relearn processes. But yeah, I just kind of stay in Delaware. I find it. I have more than enough deals here. A lot of it comes down to, for me, quality over quantity. So over time, I've been able to kind of develop a system where I don't have to do this crazy, I hear these guys, I do 100 deals a year, I do 50 deals a year, I do 200 deals a year. And keeping it real, I can do one deal and make more than what they make on those 50. I mean, just being honest about it. If you do one deal and make $70,000, okay, well, but this guy is doing all these wholesales and he's making $3,000 a pop. Well, that guy's got to do 25 to my one. So it's kind of like work smarter, not harder for me. But again, I'm kind of like a lazy investor. I like
that.
I am, man. Like if I can do it easy, I'm going to take the easy route. Because guys ask me that too. They'll say, how do you determine whether you're going to do a deal or not? And I'll say, well, I always look at it, and this is like a nanosecond process in my head. I'll say, what's going to get me the most money in the shortest period of time with the least amount of effort? If I can do a deal and send some text messages out or send some emails out and wholesale it and make 30 grand, I'll do that versus rehabbing it and making 50. However, if I can rehab the house and make 100, I'm probably going to go ahead and rehab it.
Yeah. Gotcha. So how many deals, like, can you give some, okay, so if someone doesn't know, I know you a little bit, so I know what you're saying is legit, but someone who's just listening to this, never heard you before, because you kind of keep it intentionally that way, like some type of credibility of like, hey, you do this many deals a year or revenue or something like that, so people can get an idea of like how you're an expert,
Okay, so for me, I've never been that 50 deal a year guy. The most deals I've ever done in 1 year was 22, I think, 22 or 24, something like that. On average, give or take, I usually do 7 to 12 a year, give or take.
Okay.
And I try to keep the profits anywhere between 50 to over 100. So
That's insane. Yeah.
prime example, we're doing a short sale and I just got an approval today. We're buying this house for 55,000. And I mean, knock on wood, anything can happen, lightning can strike or whatever. But we're buying a house for 55,000. The comps are 275.
Wow.
So if you do the math on it, okay, you throw 50, 60 grand into that house. Okay, you're into that house for 140,000 and you sell it for 275. Even if you have costs, you're still at six figures. It's really, how many of those do you have to do per year to really change your life? Again,
Not
coming from a
many.
guy making $300 every 2 weeks, I mean, hell, that 5 grand that I got on that first deal was like, crazy to me. So I try to work smarter than harder. I don't really kind of do this whole, it takes this amount of money to get this amount of deals to make this amount of income. I kind of focus on lifestyle. So whatever it takes to maintain your lifestyle, you should be able to do that. So if if Tim's lifestyle, to pay all his bills and be able to live a decent life, going to restaurants or traveling and driving whatever car he wants, if that's 100,000, then okay, how many deals does Tim have to do per year to maintain that lifestyle? So it's like, okay, well, 100 grand. If he does one deal, and if his average profit on a deal is 50,000, well, he just has to do two a year. So it's like, okay, do one every 6 months. We both know no one's going to do two a year.
Right.
No one's ever going to do that. But I think for me, it's easier if you focus on quality over quantity. So on average, we usually do 7 to 12, give or take, and the profits usually range between 50 to whatever. We're doing a subdivision right now, excuse me, that we're running the numbers on. Again, I try to keep stuff basic, but again, I got talked into doing this deal where we subdivided this land and we're going to build houses on it and this and that. And profits on those will probably be all in on the houses for there'll be two houses there will be all in for about 350. They'll probably sell for 700 each. So you're looking at a 700 profit, give or take. I mean, it's like, how many of those do you really kind of have to do to?
So that's 700,000 profit, you mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
in the whole thing, in the whole
yeah,
shebang,
yeah.
or
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's not tomorrow. It's not
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
tomorrow, but it's over time. It'll take that because we got to build them and sell them and do all that. But I like to do just easy peasy deals. I've gotten to be really, really good at the foreclosure industry end of things with the short sale thing. I find that a lot of people are scared of those for some reason, which is baffling to me because they just, again,
There's
kind
less
of go.
courses on it, man. There's less courses on how to do that. Maybe that's why. I don't know.
I actually, keeping it real, I taught myself the short sale business.
Yeah.
My very
Okay.
first short sale, true story. Of course, I thought they were all going to be like this. So for people that don't know, a short sale basically is someone who's in foreclosure in one way, shape, or form. They're behind in payments. The bank is in the process of taking the house back. So you basically go to the bank, and then I'm dumbing it down, but you basically go to the bank and you'll buy the property for pennies on the dollar.
Because the
Usually,
home's underwater, right? That's why you have to do it versus just paying off the mortgage, or it depends.
there's really no rhyme or reason to it, man. Honestly,
Okay.
I always say with a short sale, there's no logic to it. I mean, I've actually had instances where we've been higher on numbers to the bank and they actually want less. But we'll say we'll give 250 and they say, no, we don't want 250, we want 200. It's like, okay, like whatever,
Free money. Okay. Yeah.
That's like weird, you know what I mean? But the very first short sale that I did, a lady came to me and it really was like everything was wrapped up in a bow. I thought all of them were going to be like this, but they're not, of course. But my very first one, lady came and she said, well, I live in, and the crazy thing about it, how I am now came from this. So how I am behind the scenes and like my business, I really only work about 2 hours a week in the real estate business, give or take.
You work about 2 hours a week in total, and you're bringing in, I mean, a fair amount of money, well over six figs, every year, and you work that little. That's good. That's impressive, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I work about 2 hours a week in the real estate business. But
what do you do in those 2 hours? I'm very curious. Like, you break it down for me.
A lot of it is guidance, making sure people are doing what they're supposed to do. And that could be by email, that could be by text. I have a person that processes that I've taught the short sale business. So they process the short sales. Usually like once or twice a week, we'll follow up by and it'll be a text. Hey, how are we looking on this deal? I handle the rehabs with the property. So me emailing or not, I don't really email the contractors, but me talking to the contractors or texting the contractors, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. I usually visit the properties that we're rehabbing, usually in my daily travels a couple times a week, just to make sure that, guys are doing what they're supposed to do. I kind of don't, I'm kind of lazy. Like I don't go out of my way. So like tomorrow, my kids are off from school. So I actually saw one of my contractors today. We were walking through her house, going through what we had to do. And I was saying, well, I'm not going to be at the house tomorrow because my kids don't got school. So I don't have a reason to drive 20 minutes up the road or whatever. But usually it's just guiding people, making sure people are doing what they're supposed to do. My business, a lot of it is phone, fax, and email. And I've just gotten used to it being that way where I've had
Fax
done
machine, huh? People still use faxes, huh? Okay. I'm just roasting a little bit. You set yourself up earlier, man. You set yourself up, Carl the Sheets. I got to brand you as this old guy.
People don't fax anymore. They don't fax.
I don't even have a printer in my house. I don't even own a printer.
That's baffling to me, man. Like, so how do you print? Where do you go to Staples?
I tell you, so I live in an apartment complex right now, as many Southern Californians do. And they have a printer as like a communal printer. I probably used it 5 times in 3 years. I don't print anything.
On fax and email. Well, yes, so we still do fax. Yes. So, I mean, It is what it is.
Anyway.
So how did that, so I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. So how did I get to be that way is usually the question. Like, how does it get to the point where you're only working 2 hours a week? We've all been there. You make an appointment again. So for me, you have to remember how the world was when I started. We didn't have cell phones. There was no Google. There was no internet. The internet was around, but it wasn't what it is now. Like it would take you literally, I kid you not, when we had dial up, it would take me an hour to pay 3 credit card bills. Now I'll come home, I would turn the computer on, wait for the log, walk upstairs, come back, type in the email address or type in the website address, come back. Like it took an hour to pay your bills. It wasn't like how it is now. So imagine how the world was when I started. So let's say you're a seller and I make an appointment with you. I say, okay, well, I'm going to come see your house on Saturday, 12 o'clock. Okay. And I'm an on-time type of person. So I get all dressed, I'm all nice, I'm ready. I go to your house, knock on the door, nobody answers. And I'm like, okay, there's nobody here. So how do I get in contact with you? Well, I have to go to a payphone. So now I got to drive to some gas station to call you and then find out that you're like, oh man, I forgot about that. Yeah, can we meet next week? And I'm like, dude, I just wasted 2 hours out of my time driving to your damn house. You're not even here. You know what I mean? That happened like so often. That was like a common thing that would happen a lot. So one time a seller called me and we just couldn't get the schedules aligned where it was like, hey, I'll come to your house on Saturday. Well, I'm out. I got my kids on Saturday. Can you come on Monday? Monday doesn't work for me, whatever. And I was like, well, how about this? Why don't I just email you the paperwork or fax? Why don't I email you or fax you the paperwork? You sign it, email it or fax it back to me. Yeah, no problem. And then it was just like, damn, that was easy. Like I didn't have to waste my time or my gas.
Just do that every time.
So it kind of built to that where it was like, hey, Tim, even to this day, when I talk to a seller, the rarity that I do, but when I do talk to a seller, I'll say, hey, look, Tim, everything sounds good. Because now you have the technology where I can run comps from my phone. I can kind of pull up public records from my phone. I can kind of get the 90% of the information I need right in my fingertips. I don't have to go anywhere. So I may talk to you and say, well, okay, Tim, I'm going to email you some paperwork. You'll have it in about 5 minutes. Can you sign it, scan it, and send it back to me? Yeah, no problem. So it's like now that's kind of the norm. Like I very rarely go to see houses. Like I know it's going to sound weird. Probably almost all the houses we buy were sight unseen. The house I went to go see today with the contractor, I bought the house in February. That was the first time I've been inside that house.
And it comes from the bank, right? So the bank has photos, I guess, of it, or not even.
Sometimes. So usually somebody does look at it, either the realtor look at it or somebody I work with to go look at it.
Just not you. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
But see, it's like a numbers thing. So it's like, if Like the house that I'm talking about today, I just got the approval for the 55,000. Okay, I know. I went online, I looked at it on Google, and somebody that bought me the deal sent me some pictures of it. I know the comps are 275. It's kind of like
you can't lose, right? Like the
you're in
risk is so
California,
low, right?
gas is what, $10 there, $9, whatever it is there.
Yeah.
If
I don't
somebody
want to talk
told
about it.
you, if somebody said to you, "Hey Tim," I don't know if you do, you have Wawas there. Are they?
We don't have Wawas here, but I love Wawas, so use that as an example.
Okay. Whatever gas station you have, Exxon. Hey man, the Exxon around the corner has got gas for $2. Do you physically have to go and look at the sign to verify that, or you like, oh shit, $2, let me go there? So it's kind of that. Like we kind of know going in that if these numbers just make sense, then they make sense. I mean, it's plus I know the areas at this point. I know where areas are good. I know where areas are kind of not so good. I mean, we may be able to get more than 275 for that one house, honestly. But
gotcha. You're not worried about like a underground oil septic tank fiasco, or there's a dead body in the basement, or the structure is cut in half or something. That doesn't it's not a factor, huh?
I mean, common sense comes into play. I mean, these are newer houses. I mean, you're familiar with the area. These houses are under 20 years old, so you don't have like craziness. They're usually townhouses, so they're connected. It's funny because a buddy of mine, the guy that I used to pick his brain when I first started, he was the only guy that I knew that owned a house. So he was the guy that I went to kind of taught me about mortgages. When I had a job, we used to sit at the lunch table and I would pick his brain. Well, I went to him to partner on a deal one time.
Okay.
And I remember it was a townhouse, right? So it's like 6 houses, or it's like 8 houses, and this one is in the middle. And he was just like a nervous guy, and he's coming up with all these like crazy asinine things of why he shouldn't do the deal. He's like, well, what if the house is on top of a sinkhole? And his name is Mike. And I was like, well, Mike, that's kind of weird because it's a townhouse. And if it is, the house on the left looks fine and the house on the right looks fine. It's not like this thing is like dipping down. Right. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, but
we're just scared. Yeah.
But I kind of got off track. What was I saying? Something about
I got a question. Yeah, well, okay. This is kind of a segue, related. Do you have any like nightmare real estate stories? You've been in the business so long, just like a good nightmare story that happened to you or something like that, or that you know of. It's gotta be something. I know you got some drama with some crazy sellers or something.
I wouldn't say nightmares. I mean, things happen, and usually things can be resolved with money. Time or money, period. If you think about any deal that you have going on, it can be resolved with writing a check or time passing. So remember I said we buy houses sight unseen for the most part. So this one time we were buying this one house, and it was on the way to my son's school. So it was literally the day of settlement. So I was like, let me drive by. And the same contractor I was with today, I was like, can you meet me there? So we meet there, and it's a little townhouse. You know the area very well. I don't want to say it, but you know the area very well. And cookie cut, first time home buyer neighborhood. And we get there, and I thought I had the key in my center console. So I was like, shit, I thought I had the key. So we go to the door, and he turns the knob, and he's like, oh, it's unlocked. And when they're vacant, sometimes sellers just walk, they just leave, they're unlocked or whatever. So that was kind of normal. I was like, okay, so we walk in, and the house was pretty clean. Like there was furniture there. And I was like, so she said this house is vacant. It's kind of, I was like, but she maybe left some stuff behind. And then the contractor goes, the electric is on. He like points at the cable box, right? He's like, yeah, the electric is on. I was like, that's weird. Then I hear this dog bark. This little rat dog I hear barking. I was like, did you hear that? And he goes, yeah. And then I hear like some movement, and I go, hello? I like yell out, hello. And this dude comes walking down the stairs. What the fuck are you doing in my house?
Oh shit.
So he's like walking up on me, and well, you've never met me physically, but I'm 6'2", like 225, 230. People think I'm a huge guy, but I don't view myself that way. But he's like walking towards me. So me and the contractor like walking backwards out of the house. We're like, yo, man, like just chill. So I'm thinking I'm at the wrong house. I'm like, yo, is this the right house?
Yeah. He's
like, what the fuck are you doing in my house? And then I looked at the address. I'm like, dude, I'm supposed to be buying this house in like 2 hours. Like, this is 123 Main Street, right? I was like, and I said the seller's name, and it turned out that the seller, she was shady. What she did was she took their security deposit to move them in the house just to
Uh,
pocket their money. And so now I got a problem because I don't know how it is in California, but Delaware, just because I'm buying the house doesn't mean I can kick you out of the house. I have to honor the lease that you're under. These people just signed this lease 30 days before. So I'm thinking, shit, if I buy this house, I may have 11 months that I got to deal with these people living in the house. And then luckily they were dumbasses and they got evicted. But I had to wait. It took me 5 months to get them out of the house.
Oh man.
Yeah, it took 5 months to get them. But we still bought it because, again, the numbers made
Yeah.
sense. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if we're getting this house for 30 grand and it's worth 200, okay, I got to wait 5 months to get this guy out or whatever. It's like, all right, okay, we got to eat 5 months or whatever. But it turned out okay. But that was kind of, in my mind, I was thinking, what if I went to the house at 8 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night? Luckily, it was like noon.
You could be
Because
dead.
nighttime, I got shot. I mean,
Yeah.
he could have shot then, but
Yeah.
but other than that, I mean, pretty much you just have stuff happen. Like you buy houses. I remember one time we were doing a short sale, and the realtor one of the realtors I use, he went to go look at the house, and he called me and he was like, "Yeah, you got some squatters in there." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Are you sure you want to buy this house?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't give a shit as long as the numbers work." He was like, "Well, I went in there and the people were naked." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yo, they're in the corner, like sitting there, like butt naked." And I was like, "What'd you say to him?" He was like, "Man, I didn't say anything. I just walked out." I was like, "What the fuck am I doing, man?" You know.
That's
But
funny.
I don't really have a lot of craziness. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like
when you don't go to the houses, right? If you're not even going to there, then you're not going to have the stories, right?
so I don't really experience
Yeah.
like, but I will say, like, I will be honest and say that I'm very picky with who I do business with. So I like to deal with sellers that are on the up and up and they're reasonable people. I don't like to deal with shady, underhanded people. So I'll kind of walk from a deal. Like if a seller's giving me kind of nonsense or they're kind of popping off and they're kind of got this arrogance or something, hey man, I'm probably not the guy to help you. Why don't you call somebody else? I don't have that a lot. Most people, you'd be surprised with the whole foreclosure industry. Most of the time, they're very, very appreciative that you're helping them out. I mean, they're crying. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it with sellers are crying, they're hugging you, they're inviting you to their Christmas party or whatever. So I don't really have a lot of drama with people, but I mean, every once in a while, something stupid will happen that
Right.
it's just like, why did I get involved in this? But it is what it is.
So I feel like if you wanted to, and this is the path I feel a lot of investors get to, where they will maybe get to a point you were at a long time ago, where they're doing good. They're making over 6 figures. They're doing a bunch of deals, but they scale. They double down. They work twice as much, and they're working 50, 60 hours a week. They have a whole team of 10 people. You know what I'm talking about, right? There are
Yeah.
businesses like that. And you decide to take a different approach where you say, hey, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're of the mindset of, okay, I make what I need to make to have the lifestyle I want. Anything on top of that is cherry, it's like cherry on top. Granted, like you want to have like savings and retirement
Yeah.
stuff, factor that in. But to you, there comes a point where it's like enough. And then you're all about lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
How to me, that's a little bit unique. I'm the same way as you. I believe the same thing, but I do feel like it's a little bit unique. Can you talk about why that is versus why maybe that's unique to you and not a lot of other people? Can you speak to that?
Okay. So it's funny that you say that because I do have that conversation with people a lot, and I don't want to say they look down on me for that, but they kind of side-eyed me a little bit like, dude, why wouldn't you want to do 100 deals a year? So going back to my upbringing, so I was a product of, remember I told you I was poor. So my parents were together until I was about 14. And then my dad got strung out on drugs and he left us. So for the majority of my life, I mean, he kind of wasn't really there anyway, but when he got on drugs, he kind of left us or whatever. So for all intents and purposes, I was part of a single mom household. So when I had children, my first child, I have 2 sons. My first child was born in 2003 and he's special needs. He's autistic. So I made a conscious decision that one, as a person that brought a child into this world, I have an obligation to raise him and be a part of his life. And secondly, he's special needs, so he requires additional attention. So you kind of have to have a balance between which is more important, making a ton of money and never being around and never spending time with your kid. Because I know guys that are like this, man, keeping it real. I know guys that are just like, you can't get them on the phone. They're always running ragged. They're always like, hey, I'll call you right back, assuming that they answer the phone. They don't call you back. They don't respond to text messages. They're checking their email. At the end of the week, they're always like, oh man, I'm just so busy. But there's an exchange for that. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's just what we choose to do with those 24. So if Tim is this guy that wants to do 100 deals a year, I don't have a problem with that. But you're married, right?
Mm-hmm.
That 100 hours a week is taking from your relationship with your wife. Okay, so let me take it back a little bit. So at the time, my wife, she's now my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. So I jumped all in real estate. I read as many books as I could. I listened to tapes. I went to seminars. All I talked about was real estate. That's all I did. Real estate, real estate, real estate. I was just so passionate about it. And I remember one day, and this is not her thing. She doesn't really give a shit. So one day we were in the car and she's like, you know what? She was like, can we talk about something other than real estate? She said, that's all you talk about. And I was just like, how can you not enjoy what we're talking about? So we kind of had this arrangement because it was affecting our relationship. So we had this arrangement that it was like, hey, look, you can do real estate up to 2:00. And then after 2:00, it's my time. So I would get up, back then I would call ads in papers, or I would call sellers back, or I would drive for dollars, what they call it now, drive. I would do whatever. But then at 2:00, that was her time. Like I didn't talk real estate. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't talk to tenants. I didn't do any of that. So there's a lesson to be learned there where my wife, even though she was my girlfriend at the time, she had enough courage to bring it to my attention that was affecting our relationship. Well, some people don't have that. And you're in this relationship with a girlfriend or wife, and all you do is real estate. You think, I hear some people talk this nonsense. They say, yeah, I'm on the grind. I'm doing real estate from 6 in the morning to like 2 in the morning, or 6 in the morning to midnight. And I'm like, dude, that's 18 hours a day. What the fuck are you doing for 18 hours a damn day? But they're doing whatever, but it's taking away from something. You're not spending quality time with your girlfriend or your wife or your children or your mother or whatever. So I kind of early on made a decision that I have to have a balance. After we had that conversation, I had a balance. And then, of course, that was all around the same time of phone, fax, and email, where I'm just emailing the paperwork to the person. I'm just faxing it to them, even though people don't fax anymore.
I'll keep making fun of you the whole episode for that. No.
It's funny you say that because I just faxed some shit the other day.
Yes, that's funny.
But that all kind of happened around the same time. So it just kind of, my life became, it doesn't have to be all about money. So I think you have to have a balance, man, because you have these people, and it doesn't just have to be real estate. It could be a guy who's a surgeon. You see all the time. I'm watching the show on Hulu. It's about the Lakers, the LA Lakers. And it's about Jerry Buss, who owned the Lakers. And they're saying this guy was a billionaire, but he was never around. He got all these kids, but he never spent time with his kids because he was always focused on the business. But they're rich, they're mogul people, but they're like, we never had that quality time with our father. And there's a big lesson there, man. Like I wanted to be present for my kids. So I never had the desire to be this guy that did 100 deals a year. I mean, it sounds good on paper, but you have to have, I believe in my life has to be balanced between, my dog is coming in, sorry, we just knocked the door open. I believe there has to be a balance between money, you have to be able to pay your bills, and quality of life. And you have to be, a lot of it goes into your mental health as well. I talk to guys all the time that, I know a guy that does, you actually know him too, I think. He probably does 40 houses a year, and he owns a restaurant, and he has a ton of rentals. I think he has 60 rentals, and he's a one-man show. And that guy will tell you, dude, I remember I talked to him one time, and he was, and because I was in awe, I'm like, damn, dude, you're really making he's probably making what, 3 million a year or something like that. And he said to me, he was like, man, I'm just scale it back, man. I don't want to do 40 houses anymore. I don't want to do that volume anymore. And he's like, because I'm building this thing for my kids, but I'm not around for my kids. So now he probably does, I don't know, 15 houses a year or 20 houses a year or whatever he does. But I just never really had that desire to do that. I think that there needs to be a balance there, because there's going to be a trade-off. If you're doing tons and tons of deals. I mean, if you're buying a house or selling a house or doing something with a house every single day of the year, you think about it, if you're doing 50 houses a year, that's one a week. Every week you're talking to an attorney, a lender, a contractor, a tenant, somebody. I mean, after a while, it's good money, but your girl is going to be like, look, Tim is never here.
Yeah, man.
You're never around. So for
I
me,
think
it was never about that. It was about lifestyle. Like, I need to be able to be present for my kids. I need to make sure that my kids enjoy life. I want them to have good experiences. I want them to have a good bond with me and my wife. I don't want kids that are like, dad's never home. Oh, he's always off looking at some house. I know a guy that does that. He's always going off to a seminar somewhere. He's always leaving for a week or two, and he does good volume. But what's the trade-off? You're not with your wife. You're seeing your wife a handful of times a month, and when you do see her, you're on the phone, you're texting, you're at some meeting, you're doing something. That
right.
affects when you're 50 years old. That shit is gonna bite you in the ass. So for me, it was never really about that.
You know, I think that's a testament as well to your relationship and your wife as well, to be able to come to an agreement to not work after 2 o'clock. You kind of glossed over that, but that's a big deal. I know most people wouldn't commit to doing that in their relationship. And to me, I think it's a testament to a lack of ego. You know, I think it goes into like staying away, staying in the shadows too. Like, you're not trying to look good on paper. You're not trying to say, hey, look at me, look at me. You're not trying to prove something to anybody. You're just doing what you need to do to get what you need to done so you can enjoy your life and support your family without any
How
ego.
much
To
money
me,
do you
this
really
is
need? You think about it, like, okay,
good
keeping it
question.
real.
What do you think?
Let's
Let's
say your
talk about
bills
it.
come to $5,000 a month. I'm just making a number up. Your bills come to $5,000 a month. Okay, so that's 60 grand a year that you have to make just to maintain your bills, right? And let's say you do, if your average deal is 20 grand, I'm just making an easy number. Your average deal is 20 grand. And let's say you have a goal, I'm going to do one deal, I'm going to do 6 deals a year, which that to anybody, I would think that would be a reasonable. 6 is not a high number. It's $120,000 a year. So your bills are paid and you have an extra 60 grand. Okay, keeping it real. Only but so many cars you can buy. It's only but so many clothes you can buy. It's only but so many restaurants you can go to. It's only but so many trips you can take. And that's every year you're doing that. Right. It's like, do you really need to make $800,000 a year? It's great, but is it really necessary? And I'm not saying that you can't make 800 and save it or invest it or build wealth, or I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, for the average person, they're focusing on making the 800,000, but it's like, okay, you're making all this money, but are you taking trips with your family? Probably not, because now you have this, it's like you said, ego, where you have this feeling of, well, if I take this trip with my wife, I'm not going to be able to do that deal that I wanted to do that week.
Exactly. Right.
So I'm not going to get
losing
that
something.
$50,000. So it's like, now you're doing this exchange, and then when you're on the trip, you're not present because you're thinking about, oh man, I hope Tim didn't wholesale that house. I hope Tim didn't sell that house to somebody else. And it's like, you're not present. So I don't know, man. I think because the way the world was back then, it wasn't this microwave world. That's a problem that I see with the newer investor. I think we kind of talked about this a little bit before, when you told me about the podcast. I find that more with the newer guy that's getting into the business, that's like 25, 26 years old. They want everything like that. It's like they don't want to invest in anything, right? Like, they don't want to do anything. All they want is the 800,000. They don't want to do the work that it takes to get the 800, the bumps and bruises, the mistakes. They don't want to do all that. I find today, guys don't even want to read a book. Mm-hmm. They just want to go on YouTube. Yeah. I just had a conversation with this lady that she actually lied to me, but she was getting into business, and she literally refuses to pay anybody for education. She said, I'm not paying anybody. I can just learn on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to learn how to do all this shit in Delaware from Tim, who lives in California. I kind of think things are different in California than they are in Delaware. But yeah. I mean, people do that. But
if they don't have the nuances are left out and all of that kind of stuff, right? It's all general stuff. You can learn how to short sale, but you don't learn how to short sale, like get into it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool, man. All right. So I got a few more questions. How much time do you got left, by the way?
Man,
I
I'm
know
on
we
here
started a bit late.
whatever.
You good? All
I'm
right. All
here,
right.
it's whatever.
Um, I find it interesting because you posted on Facebook. I was going through your Facebook like as my research
Uh-oh.
beforehand. Nothing crazy, but you shared something from a buddy, and it was like this guy in a car with some tattoos talking about like hard work, hard work, hard work. Um, but at the
Was
same
that?
time, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know who it was,
I,
but whatever. I don't know. I was expecting to like a more kind of grind hustle, like kind of vibe from you. And I'm, pleasantly surprised it's not the case. But what is your stance on like, you know, the culture, I guess, in our industry of like, work ethic? And you see people posting like that. I mean, obviously you just went into it a fair amount, but like, can you expand on that just a little bit? Because I had to say, okay, so this goes back to another episode I had. I had an episode with Andy. He's a big SEO guy, and we had the same conversation. And he was saying that you like in the beginning that you do have to put in a lot of hard work, and like to not have to work hard is a luxury in a way because like I don't have to work 50 hours a week, but I can hire people to do it. Like you can have people do things for you. When you're getting started, you may not have the money to have that luxury to go hire people out. So can you speak to maybe work ethic, someone who's been in it a while versus someone in the beginning and et cetera?
so it's a multitude of ways to kind of answer that. And I know it may be difficult for the newer generation to kind of understand it. So again, when I started, like you had to put work in. You had to pay. There was no way around it because there was no internet. There was no there was no podcast. I didn't know somebody in Montana. There was no way for me to find out what some guy's doing in Arizona. Like you just had your little local thing. But keeping it real, people were very guarded, even to this day, I find it. They were very guarded with information. So in the Delaware
Mhm.
market, you had a ton of like you had a swarm of like the We Buy Houses. You would go on a phone book and see guys in there. You would see on commercials. There was a local I can't remember what it was. You may remember what it was, but it was something on the cable network, the local cable, where it was a channel, and you could pay to have your business on there for like a half hour. And this guy would go around different businesses and interview people. Yeah, the guy that had that on lock, like you couldn't even pay for the time
Right.
to get on there because he had some contract with them. He could be the only person. But you would call these guys up because you didn't know anything. And like, let's say you had an ad, and I would call you up and say, "Hey, look, hi, my name is Jason. I'm a new investor. I wanted to see if I could sit down and pick your brain." And guys would be like, "No, I'm not doing that." And you'd be like, "What? Like you don't? I'm just like a little goldfish in the pond. You're like the big guy." And guys were like super guarded, like, "Nah, man, you got to figure it out. Like I'm not going to tell you." So it was a rarity for this type of dialogue to happen, where it's like two guys that are just being candid and just vulnerable and just explaining things and just doing it for free or whatever. You didn't
Yeah.
have that. So you had to pay. You had to buy a book and read it. You had to buy a tape and listen to it. You had to buy back then a VHS tape and watch
Crowd
it.
sheets. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to go to a seminar and sit there for 3 days,
Right.
and you took it home and you applied some of it, and some of it worked and some of it didn't, or you may have fucked it up. You may have not did exactly what the guy said because you can do it better. So you changed the ad up a little bit and you didn't get the results. But my point is, you had to invest your personal time and energy and or money in learning the business. And the difficulty that I see now is like that chick that I was talking about. She refuses to pay. She's like, "I'm not going to pay someone to learn this business when I can go on YouTube." Now, I don't have a problem with YouTube, but I think it should be for supplemental. I think you should already have a solid foundation of the business. You should have a solid foundation of different ways to do deals, and then go to YouTube for, okay, this guy has a yellow letter that he sends out, but this is the language he uses in the letter, or
Right.
this is the list that he used, or this guy has a bandit sign and this is the color scheme that he uses, or this is the language that he puts on the sign. But you should have a solid foundation of marketing, of business structure, of deal structure. You should have a solid foundation of relationships with attorneys or title companies. You should be able to pick up the phone and call people to get a deal done. But you have these guys that are getting the business now, and it's ludicrous. I'll go on Facebook and I try not to chime in, but you'll have a guy that says, and I've seen it, and I'm sure you've seen it as well. They'll put on a forum, "Hey, I have a house under contract. What do I do now?"
I see that
I'm
all the
like,
time. It's so cringy.
and I'm like, okay, so hold on a minute. Like you went on, you met with a seller, you have it under contract, but now you're clueless on what to do. Because keeping it real, you should know what you're going to do with the deal long before you even sign the contract. You should know if you're going to wholesale it, if you're going to rehab it, if you're going to keep it as a rental, if you're going to do some kind of, hotel, whatever they want to call it. You should know that going in. But you have these guys that are literally going to people's houses and they chalk it up to experience. Well, you gotta make some mistakes, or you gotta lose some money. And I just never understood that mentality. I'm just like, dude, I don't get why you're going to this person's house. It was another guy that was local. It was funny because he clearly didn't know what he was doing, but he was kind of one of these guys he had one of having a YouTube channel, and he was supposed to be like a guru. He's like the guy for Delaware. And I'm like, this is the same guy that asked me to proofread his paperwork, and he had contradictions in his paperwork. And I asked him, I said, dude, where'd you get this paperwork from? He said, I just got it offline, but I just combined it. And I'm like, well, you have a contradiction here, because this part here is saying this, but then you have another sentence down here that contradicts that sentence. What are you doing? He's like, oh, I didn't catch that. Like, so this guy didn't even take the time to read his own paperwork. It's just ridiculous. So that's a problem, because now that's where you have this whole regulation thing happening now, where they're going to, you have these realtors that think that we steal houses from old ladies, and they think we're robbing people. Rightfully so. When you have someone that doesn't know what they're doing, they're getting a house under contract, and then they go on YouTube, or they go on Facebook and say to the world, what should I do now? So now you have a dumbass leading a dumbass. So now you have some other guy who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, chiming in saying, yeah, I think you should do this. Hey, let's JV on it. And it's like, dude, man, you're just making a mess. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem. So it's like, I think that you have to pay, man. Like, it's just like, it just doesn't, this whole trial by fire, rites of passage, it just doesn't work. Because I had another conversation with a guy a month ago, and I do mentoring. I think we talked about that before. I do mentoring. And this is one of the only guys that I cut. I cut him. I said, dude, I can't mentor you. I can't do business with you. And the reason I cut him is because, here you go. He's one of these guys that don't listen, right? So I'm telling him what to do, and he's always fact checking me. So like, I'll tell him to do something, and he goes on YouTube and changes it, right? And I'm like, dude, I didn't tell you to do that. So he comes, see if you catch what it is. He's like, yeah, I got a seller that called me, and I got it under contract for 120, and I'm going to wholesale it for 115.
Doesn't make any sense.
Thank you.
Okay.
I said, hold. I thought I heard him wrong. I said, hold on a minute. I said, so explain it to me again. He's like, I got it under contract for 120, and I got a guy that's going to buy it for 115.
Wait. Let me guess. Is he expecting to go back and renegotiate the contract? That's what he was hoping for.
Yes. I'm like, dude, why would you do that? Why would you go in upside down? Like, it's so now, but here's the problem. I don't necessarily have a problem with the renegotiation part of it. I don't have a problem with that part of it. The part of the problem that I have is that I'm sure he went to this seller and guaranteed that he was going to be fronting the money, that he was going to be able to close in 2 or 3 weeks. So this person is making
life decisions,
plans in their life for this money. But dude, you don't even know where the money is coming from. You don't even have the buyer, and you're selling it for $5,000. So you're going to write a check to sell this person's house. So now when you go back to renegotiate, what are you going to say? Well, I thought I could pay 120, but I could pay. It's like, it was just so. And then I remember he said, when I was talking to him, he goes, well, I don't care about the money. He goes, I don't care about the money. I just want to learn. And I said, dude, I can't mentor you anymore. I said, because if you don't care about the money, you don't give a shit. So like, okay, so that's risky, right? So like, if you don't care about the financial implications of the deal, that means that you'll go borrow money from Tim. Let's say Tim is a hard money lender, or he's a private lender. You'll go borrow money from Tim for $200,000, and you don't really give a shit whether Tim gets paid or not, because you don't care about the money, right? So you're going to stiff Tim. That's a problem. I don't do business with people like that. If you're going to borrow $200,000 from Tim, you need to be damn sure that Tim's going to get his money back, plus some.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But like you're risky. You're like, you don't give a shit because you're like, hey man, I don't give a fuck. Like I'm just happy I got her under contract because I kind of got comfortable talking to sellers. But no, dude, like go into the deal with it being a solid deal. I would feel better if he had her under contract for 120 and he had a guy at, if he had a guy that was going to pay him 120. That would have
Yeah.
been a better scenario than you have her under
Yeah.
contract for 120. You're going
Yeah.
to sell her for 115. Like at least you're not making anything, but you're learning the process. But that's a problem, man. And so like I never got into the whole professor thing. I never got into the I know everything. And it's funny because people say, oh man, you're the master, you're the guru. I don't view myself that. I'm still humble. I think I know a lot, but I don't know everything. There's always somebody out there that does something a little different than I can take from. There's always a guy out there that may change his paperwork up a little bit and I like what he did or I like his style. So let me incorporate that into my business. But you have these guys that are out here, they've done 1 or 2 deals and now they're creating YouTube channels where they're the guru. And I'm like, dude, true story. So 2 weeks ago, a guy comes to me and he wants me to do a short sale for him. And I said, okay. So I'm talking to him and I had met him. I was speaking at some engagement like a few months ago and I don't even remember him, but he said he met me there. So he's like, I want you to process this short sale. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what do you plan on doing with it? Are you going to buy it? Are you going to rehab it? You can have this rental? You're going to wholesale it? Like, I need to know these things before I process the short sale. So he's like, well, I was going to wholesale it. So I said, okay. I said, well, what did you want to make on it as a wholesale? And he was kind of, I'm like a basic dude. So he's like, well, I benchmarked for 15,000. I'd never heard somebody say that, talk like that, like this benchmark thing. He's like, well, he said, I usually benchmark to make 15,000. And I was like, okay. And I was like, so I'm running the numbers and it's $100,000 house. So I'm like, okay, dude, you're going to make 15 and it's 100. That's like a lot, but okay. So I'm like, well, how many deals have you done? And he goes, well, I have 6 under contract. She's not answering my question. So I said, okay. So how many deals have you closed? He said, well, I'm working on 6. Hold on. Hold on. So I go, I said, well, let me rephrase the question. How many houses have you gone into contract that actually went to settlement and you got a check out of it? He goes, well, none. And I said, well, where's the usually part come from? Because he said, I usually get 15,000. I usually benchmark to make 15,000. Dude, there's no usually. You've never done it.
Never done it, right?
But people are embarrassed to just say, I've never done it. Dude, I was always that honest guy, man. Like if I went to a seller, I was just like, if I didn't know something, I said, well, I've never had that situation, but let me research it and get back to you. Or if I've never done it, I'll say I've never had that come up. But let me find out how we would handle that. Or when I didn't do that 9 months, I didn't do a deal. I didn't go tell people I usually did anything. When the person said, well, how many of these deals have you done? I would say, well, really, I haven't done any. I just started like a few months ago. I was always honest. People will respect your honesty.
Yeah.
More than your lie. And I just had that conversation this morning with a tenant. She lied to me and I didn't want to call her a liar, but I flat out told her, I said, look, her name is Marilyn. I said, look, Marilyn, you're consistently inconsistent. Like you told me you're going to pay this and you don't pay it. And you're coming up with these stories that don't really make any sense. And I'm not saying you're a liar, but I'm just saying from a common sense standpoint, what you're telling me doesn't really make any sense. And I said, my mom raised me with this, the moral of it's always better to tell a real bad truth than a real good lie. So I'm not that liar dude. Like I'm not good at lying, man. Like it's like, I'll always remember because the truth is the truth. If I ask you how old you are, you like that, you want to tell me how old you are. But if you told 10 other people, hey, I'm 21, I'm 23, I'm 25, I'm 32, you're making this lie up. Now you got to kind of remember who you said that to, but you never have to remember the truth. It is what it is. So I told her that, and it's just like, and she didn't want to fess up. I kind of gave her an opportunity to kind of come clean and say, yeah, I did lie to you, but she wouldn't do it.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Right. Yeah.
No, I mean, just fall on your sword and say, yeah, I lied to you. And I said to her, I said, if you don't have the money, you're better off just telling me, hey, look, I don't have the money. And this is what I plan on doing, but you want to keep running with this lie. So you're going to get evicted. Sorry. I feel bad for you. And he's got 7 kids. She's 26.
That's rough, man.
What
I usually do when like in that scenario you mentioned, the guy who got it for 120 and is wholesaling for 115. I've been in somewhat similar situations, but like where you have to renegotiate to make a deal work, like that does happen.
But
My
hold
always
on, not to cut you off, but did you go into it that way?
No, I wouldn't go into it that way. And but some deals, you get a feel after a while. You're like, these numbers are a little tight. I don't know. Like sometimes it does happen to me, and like in the past, I don't do it that much. But what I would normally tell the seller is like, hey, like I tell them like I'm gonna wholesale this. I don't use the word wholesale, but they don't know what it means. But like,
Yeah.
my plan is like, hey, if you want, like, let's say that example 120, I'll be like, hey, look, let's put it under contract for 120. I have a network. Like I know tons of people who can buy this property I can partner up with, and we'll see if we can figure something out. I don't know if I can actually get that number for you. Give me 2 weeks and I can try. And then we'll see. And basically either X will happen, we'll make something work, or Y will happen and then we'll have to renegotiate or whatever. But I always have that conversation 100% up front. So what do you think about doing something like that? That is how I usually approached it.
Well, so the wholesale thing. So I think we've had this conversation. You probably don't remember though. So
Lay it on me here. Lay it on
I
me.
don't
Let's
I
go.
don't
Come on.
like I don't like misunderstandings. Right.
Mm.
So in my brain, like I always kind of process what can go wrong and let's fix it now. So if I know there's potentially going to be a problem if this happens, let me fix it now. So I would never go into a deal and tell a seller, because I hear this all the time now, 14 days. I got under contract for 14 days, got under contract for 21 days. And I'm like, okay, dude, let me make sure I'm understanding this. So it's October 1st. Your contract expires on October 21st. Let's say 30th. Let's say October 30th. Let's just make it a month. You don't have the buyer. You haven't pulled title. You're not on the attorney's schedule yet. Dude, a lot of shit has to happen perfectly for this to happen. You know what I mean? So it's like now that's where that stress comes from, right? Where it's like, okay, I got under contract for 100 and I want to make something. Let me just unload it so I can meet my deadline. So for me, if you recall, I get my houses under contract. Well, I'll ask you, let's see if you remember. Do you know how long I get my house under contract if I plan on wholesaling?
Dude, you told me this like 5 freaking years ago. Let's say
Mm-mm.
6 months.
It begins with a Y.
A year.
Yes.
A year, really.
I get a year to wholesale. So when I do a wholesale deal with a seller, I say, look, and people are baffled at this. They're always like, what? You get a year? The sellers don't give a shit. They're just like, oh, they don't. So you gotta understand, they don't live in the house. They live in Arizona or Ohio or Florida. It's this piece of shit house that's sitting there. They half the time don't remember that they even own the thing until we reached out to them. We send, well, every person that we do business with reaches out to us. So we send them a letter or a postcard or whatever it is, some marketing generation tool to get them to call us. And then they'll say, I got this letter in the mail about this house. I don't even remember I didn't even remember we owned that thing. Well, yeah, it's sitting there. It's got squatters in there. It's got naked people.
Right.
They haven't seen it in years. It's like, yo, you got people in there, they're naked. You know what I mean? Like what? Like, hey, look, I can try to unload this thing. I don't know what I can get, but you're guaranteed to get what you want to get, and I'll get everything above that. But I'm going to need time. You're aware that they're shooting around there, they're doing drugs, or they do whatever around there. It's an eyesore. Give me a year. Of course, I want to close sooner than later, but give me that time frame. Very rarely do I have somebody bounce back and say no. If anything, they say, the year is a long time. Give me 9 months then. The minimum I would ever do a deal for a wholesale is 90 days.
Maybe we're just like targeting different groups though, because to me, at least
People,
when I do internet marketing. Okay, well, okay, then it's a good discussion because to me, a motivated seller by definition is somebody who needs to sell the property fairly quickly. Like if they're going for foreclosure, maybe it's not a short sale, but there's a deadline for that, or they need to move or they need to pay a medical bill within 30 days. I feel like a lot of people that I talk to, maybe I'm not even trying your approach potentially. But I feel like there is a time crunch often with the sellers, at least the ones that come to us through Google Ads and whatnot. So I honestly, I don't get it. I don't get how you can put a house under contract for a
I know
year.
we've had this conversation, but I get, I get that response a lot though. Like I'm kind of used to people having that what, but it's just it. We had a lady one time that she had cancer, I think. And I just remember this lady because, again, it's not always about the money so much. It's about helping the person. You know, the money is a byproduct and a benefit of this business. We truly are helping people out. Cindy, it's crazy that I always remember the house of the seller's name, but lady Cindy, her name was Sydney. I'm sorry, Cindy. And all she wanted was enough money to get a prosthetic leg, which whatever that costs, and she wanted enough to put money in account for her kids because she had stage whatever and she didn't plan on living for X amount of time. And so obviously there's a sense of urgency there, right? Like, you know, she would want to get her leg sooner than later, and obviously she's knows that her days on the earth are numbered. But even then, she gave us a year. I mean, it just, you know, and again, so all that renegotiation part doesn't really happen. So it's like the reason that I do the year is because I don't want to run into this situation where, you know, I get under contract for 100, and let's say I'm trying to wholesale it for 120. I'm just making it easy now. I'm trying to wholesale for 120, and I do this 30-day thing, right? And then the seller is talking to Tim, and she's talking to this person, she's talking to that person. And Tim is hollering out numbers. I can give you 110. I can give you 115. Somebody else is saying I can give you 120. So this person is hearing, damn, I can kind of get more money. All I got to wait is for this guy's contract to expire on the 30th, and then I can call Tim and get that extra $15,000 or $20,000. But if you're under contract for a year, that doesn't happen because they're going to say, I'm under contract. I already have it sold to Jason and he has a year to buy it. I mean, sorry. It just diffuses all that, honestly. Like, I don't really have that. I've had sellers actually call me, and they didn't say you, but they'll say, hey, this guy named Tim reached out to me and he offered me 120, but I told him that I'm under contract with you until next year. Like, okay, thanks.
What do we do though if we're competing in the same property and I say 30 days?
There's no competition.
Well, okay, well, that's been the business model then.
If you had like $1.2 billion, would you be able to buy every house in the state of Delaware?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that, like, if you're talking to a seller and she's like, I got 6 other offers, you're just not even gonna deal with it. You're gonna focus on another property that you can get the profit margin you want, and you can get the contract length you want, etc.
So I know this is going to sound weird. I'm prefacing everything I'm about to say with, I know this is going to sound weird. It defies conventional wisdom, right?
That's why we're here.
I don't make offers on properties. So I kid you, fuck not. Every deal that we do, the seller, and this is an example that I give. So I'll give the example with the seller because I hear this a lot. Like somebody will call me and say, well, I'm trying to figure out what to offer the seller. And I'll say, and it always is like nail on a chalkboard. And I'm like, offer? Why the fuck are you doing that? Well, I got to make them an offer. No, you don't. Because I'll have sellers say that to me. They'll say, let's role play a little bit. Not role play, but I'll give you an example. They'll say, seller will call me and say, well, give me an offer. I say, well, Tim, you know, what do you want for the house? Well, give me an offer. Well, I kind of can't just give you an offer because I don't know what you need. You know, like if you can tell me what you need, then that'll kind of help the situation. And then a seller try to back you into a corner, right? Mm-hmm. And I say, well, obviously, you know, I'm an investor. I'm looking to make money. I'm not looking to rob anybody, but I would like to get the property as cheap as possible. Do you just want to deed it over to me? Do you want to just be done with it and just deed it over to me and not be bothered? Well, no, I got to make something. Okay, so we know 0 is not an acceptable number. So we're at 0 to something. So what is an acceptable number? And then that conversation usually goes one of two ways, where I have to kind of give them an analogy, and I'll say, well, they say, well, why can't you just give me an offer? And I'll say, okay, well, Tim, let me explain it to you like this. This is why I can't just holler out numbers. So let's say you owe $60,000 on the house and you borrowed money from your brother-in-law, $15,000, which takes you to 65. And you got to pay your kids' school tuition for the next year, and that's another 15,000. So you're at 80,000. And you want to have a little bit of cushion to pay some credit cards off, and you need 85,000. Mm-hmm. Now all those numbers come to 85, right? And let's say I just holler out $70,000 to you. I say, well, I'll give you 70,000. Right there, the conversation is over. You're gonna say, oh no, that's not what I need. Thanks anyway. You know, thank you for your time. It's kind of over, right? That makes sense because I'm not meeting your needs. You need 85, but I'm hollering out 75 because obviously I would like to get as low as possible. But if you tell me what you need, if you explain to me what your needs are, not only to be all in your business, but if you can just run your numbers, you know what you need. If you can give me that number, then I can work my numbers on my side. And if I can make that work, then I'll go ahead and give you that. So with that being said, what do you need in order to get rid of the property? Well, and then it's funny, they always do it they always like follow what I just said. Well, I do owe 100 and my wife does got to pay the car off and that's another 10. And I'm moving to an apartment and I want to pay about 6 months of rent and that's going to be like 6,000. So, and I got to pay the movers. So if I can get X dollars, I'll be good. Now, and while you're doing that, I'm kind of already like looking at my comps and I'm looking at the numbers and I'm, you know, we've already had a discussion about the repairs, the needs and all that. And I'm running my numbers in it. Now, mind you, you'd be surprised. A lot of times you may have hollered out 70, but they would have taken 50.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The chick that I just did that deal, not the deal with the girl that I told you said she didn't want to pay for information. She didn't want to pay for knowledge. She kind of beat me out of a deal. So that's why it's kind of weird. Kind of helped her. I kind of helped her, which I mean.
That's how it goes sometimes, I guess, right?
Dude, this chick called me and she goes, Jason, can you, tell me about this deal. And she said, I can't get the seller to take less than 110. I said, okay, well, I'll call her. So I usually do a lot of my business. I'm in the car like 3 hours a day driving my kids to school. So I usually do a lot of seller conversations in the car.
So you're still talking to sellers yourself in that 2 hours a week? Are you still doing, not to
Give
go
or
on a
take,
tangent,
yeah.
but
And it's a 5-minute conversation. So she tells me about the deal. And then I said, well, call her on the three-way. So she calls her on the three-way. And
the seller, you mean?
Yeah, the seller. She called the seller. The lady's name was, I can't believe I remember. His name was Donna.
Okay. So you two and the seller on the phone. Got it.
Yeah. So the girl that wanted to get the deal, the girl that doesn't, the investor
the YouTube lady. Right.
Yeah, exactly. YouTube University. She's on the phone. So I say, well, give her a call. So she calls her. I say, hey, Donna, you know, I work with the person's name. And I understand that you're looking to sell the property and, you know, what do you need to be done with it? Well, you know, we got to move to North Carolina and we're trying to be out of here and this and that. You know, if we can get 100, we would be pretty good. Immediately drops the price from 110 to 100, just in that 30 seconds. And I was like, damn, I didn't really say anything. And I was like, okay, well, you know, the 100 is kind of high. You know, what's the least you think you can take? And she's like, well, you know, really, we want to get out of here. You know, if we can get like 90, I think we'll be good. Like, and kid you not. So I'm like, I said, that's still kind of high. I said, but why don't you run your numbers, talk to your husband, you know, get all your information together and give this person a call back. And then, you know, if it works, you know, I said, be honest with you, we would be well below that number.
And you knew a number in your mind of what you needed it at.
I was at like 50. In my brain, I was at like 50 or 60. So she calls me back in like 2 minutes. I'm on the phone with this YouTube University investor. And she calls me back with, I'm sorry, I'm on the phone with YouTube University. And then the lady Donna calls me back. So I said, oh, she's calling me back right now. So conference call, right? And I was like, hey, Donna. She was like, yeah, I talked to my husband. If we can get 85, it's yours. So this chick dropped from 110 to 85 in 5 minutes without me even hollering out a number. So I said, okay. I said, well, let me see what we can do. I said, you know, all I'm going to do is send it out to some people. Same thing you just kind of said. I'm going to send it out. I'm going to use a realtor to try to upload it. Or I'm going to send some text message or emails out and see what I can get. I'll get everything above the 85, but you're going to get your 85. But
you don't have this under contract. There's no contract or anything yet.
There's just kind of a verbal thing.
Yeah.
So I sent it out to some people that were looking to buy houses and they were lower. So I was like, all right. So I called the YouTube University girl back on Wednesday. I texted her on Wednesday. I said, well, Donna's probably a slap of reality is probably set in. It's probably a good time to reach back out to her. So she goes, well, I have a buyer at 75. So I'm like, okay, but why are you telling me that? Like, Donna's
That's
at
what you
80.
had too, right? Weren't you around the same? You
Well,
probably
no,
sent it
she
out to
said
people.
no. She said I have a buy. She was like, I have a buyer at 75. I'm like, well, I don't understand. Donna's at 85. We're back to this whole 120, 115 thing. I'm like, I don't understand. Now this is text, mind you. So I'm misreading the text. And she's
Right.
like, so she finally fesses up. She's like, well, I got her to take 68. So I was like, what? So she wound up having like another conversation with Donna after that I wasn't privy to, and then she tried to wholesale it to somebody for 75. And I kind of felt like she cut me out a little bit because I'm like,
You put
that
time
ball.
into it. Yeah.
Say again.
You put some time into it, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean that ball started rolling based on my efforts from because you couldn't even get her to take less than 110. Now that I got that ball rolling, now you got her on 68, and then it wound up turning out that the lady had like judgment against her, and she wound up taking like 60 or 53. She took 53. I didn't get anything
gotcha.
out, but the seller wound up getting 53. But I don't know where I was going. I got off track with that.
No, I like your stories, man. The point is, it got riled up because, like, I hear what you're like. You basically are talking about how you negotiate with sellers, but like, doesn't that all go out the window to some extent if someone's calling you and it's like, hey, like, yeah, you don't have to make me an offer, Jason. Like, I'll tell you my needs, but I have Joe Schmo over here and he offered me 100. So, like, my needs be damned. I already have an offer. What are you gonna do? Like, when that situation happens, do you just not even? You're like, okay, bye, and that's it, or like, you know what I mean?
Well,
That's you can't get a year contract for a thing like that. That's what I'm saying.
okay, so you also have to understand we're not calling them, they're calling us. So my whole process is, again, I'm kind of behind the scenes. Like nobody knows who Jason is.
You're the
My name is
voice,
not on any marketing
the
materials.
Charlie's Angels guy.
Exactly. So even the marketing materials that we have, I have a fake name. So the letter doesn't go out with my name on it. It has a fake name. And
It says Tim Uphelt on it, right? I
we
think
talked about that one time. Me and you talked about, remember I
you
told
told
you, I
me
said, put a fake
don't
name.
put. You said that crazy person came to your house or something like that. That's what you
Yeah,
told me.
like somebody came, I sent some letters out and it had my name, it had me and my wife's name on it. It was like, hi, my name is Jason. My wife's name is whatever. We like to buy your house, blah, blah, blah. And the guy came to my mailbox like pissed, like looking for me. And the mailbox people called me, they were like, yo, this dude came here like looking for you. He's like upset. And that guy would call me, stop sending me fucking letters. It's like, dude, it's just a list. You know what I mean? So people are crazy, man. So that taught me a lesson of, I don't want my name. I don't want somebody, especially in the world now, people go on Facebook,
Yeah, I get
Google.
it. I get it.
They,
Yeah.
you know, so we don't do that. So shooting, for all intents and purposes, no one knows who Jason is. Like my name is not on anything. So we do marketing, whatever that marketing is, whether it be signs or letters or website or whatever. Those people call us. It goes to an answering service. The answering service fills out a questionnaire. That questionnaire gets emailed to me. So I get it on my phone. My eyes immediately go to the area, the area that the house is in, the type of house that it is, because we don't do commercial, we don't do multifamilies or apartments or raw land or anything like that. Look at the type of house that it is or the type of property that it is. Look at if they're behind in payments, because again, short sales are my thing. So I immediately go to that. And then I look at what they're asking and what they think it's worth. And then I just kind of fact check that. Like if they're asking 100 and I go online or look at comps and they go for 130, what am I calling this person back for? Like we don't even call them back. So I don't really have that whole, we don't even have a conversation. It's like, it's not worth my time to even call that person back. Now, if I look at that information, like let's use Donna, for example. Let's say I look at that information and it says they want 50 and I do my little check and I see they go for 200, then I'm going to call Donna back and say, hey, Donna, I got your information. And then I have all the information right there. So I would say, hey, Donna, this is Jason. I got your information. I understand you're looking to sell your house. You're looking to get, and I would confirm what they say. I understand you're looking to get 50,000. You're looking to settle. And then if I'm going to wholesale it, then I would go, that would be based on the area. So I usually only wholesale, and I very rarely wholesale, to be honest with you. That's a totally different problem right now. I tried to wholesale a house a couple months ago, and it's just like the industry with that is just like, it's a shit show with the whole lies and misleading, and you can't, and I don't have a problem if I'm wholesaling a house to Tim and he wants to wholesale to somebody else. I don't really give a shit as long as I'm getting what I'm supposed to get. But if I'm wholesaling to Tim and he lies to me,
right.
now it's a problem, which is like, okay, Tim, you didn't tell me that, you know what I mean? So that kind of creates problems. But I just kind of fact check. And if I'm going to wholesale it, then that's when that whole year thing comes over. Hey, Tim, I got your information. You know, based on the area, we can probably get you your 50,000, but it doesn't really fit the qualification for us to pay cash for it. That doesn't mean I can't help you. That just means that I'm not going to be the one bringing the money to the table. I'm going to market it. I'm going to send some text messages or emails out to some people. I'm going to list it with a realtor, let the realtor find a buyer. You're going to get your 50. I'm going to get everything above that. I'm going to pay the realtor his commission, and everybody's going to be good. If you're okay with that, let's do it. If you're not, I understand. You know, they don't resist. Like the scenario that you're saying, I personally don't experience. Well, I talked to this guy named Tim and he offered me 100. Can you beat his offer? Because I would say,
okay,
I would say, why didn't you just take Tim's offer? If Tim offered you 100, why didn't you take it? Then they don't know what to say. It's like I don't really experience that, honestly. The seller, again, maybe it's because I don't do 100 deals a year. I'm only, and again, the types of sellers that I'm dealing with, they're usually in foreclosure. But even the house that we bought cash last year, the guy wanted, he filled the form out. He called off of a bandit sign, if that's what you want to call him. And on the form, it said he wanted 90 grand. I know those houses go for 2 something. So it wasn't this whole, hey, let me call somebody. And here's the funny part about that. I literally got that deal because of laziness. And what I mean by that is that guy called on a Wednesday night. I think he called on a Wednesday night, and I didn't want to call him because I felt like it was too late. So I said, ironically, the guy that had the house under contract for 120 and was going to sell for 115, he has a partner. They're part of this deal. So they bought me this deal. So ironic. This is before I cut him, though. I didn't want to call the guy back because it was too late. So I was like, well, on my way to pick my son up from school tomorrow, we'll just call the guy at like 12 o'clock. I called the guy back. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but I called him back. And he goes, damn, you called me back pretty quick. And I said, well, actually, in my opinion, we didn't, because I was going to call you yesterday, but I felt like it was too late. He said, I called 3 other people and no one ever called me back. He said, I called 3 other bandit signs. I called a sign on Monday, I called a sign on Tuesday, and I called yours on Wednesday. And no one ever called. He said, you're the first person to call me back. I was like, okay. He was like, yo, the house is yours if you want it. I was like, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So people think I have this like crazy negotiation skill, you know, I mean, which I'm a pretty good negotiator, but that all comes from listening and being able to put yourself in a person's position and seeing the deal from their perspective. But that's another problem in the industry right now, where I think because people are used to everything being instantaneous, they get lazy. They want to use all these apps and all this technology. And in my opinion, those things are supposed to make your job easier. That's supposed to make it so your lifestyle is better, right? But people are so dependent on. How many times have you text somebody and they said they didn't get a chance to text, they didn't have enough time to text you back? Oh, I didn't get a chance to text you back. It's like, dude, it's on your fucking phone. Like, type the shit. I didn't get a chance to say, I didn't get a chance to reply to your email. It's like, but in my opinion, the real estate business, and I'm kind of anal with this, I think everything has equal weight. So I treat everything with the same intensity, regardless of the stage of the deal. So if someone calls me today, we're calling them back. But see, again, the expectation of the person calling me is that we're going to call them back in 24 to 48 hours. So when they call us, the answering service tells them, hey, look, you're going to get a call back within 24 to 48 hours if the person's interested in buying your house. So if we don't call them back, we don't get that whole, ain't nobody called me back. They just assume we weren't interested, which again, we're not if the numbers don't make sense. But in reality, we're calling them back same day, based on the time of day. I don't give a shit about if it's a holiday. I don't give a shit if it's a Sunday. Right. I don't get caught up in that. If you call me on Sunday morning, I'm calling you back at 12 o'clock. And now I do have a 3-strike rule where I only call you 3 times. And after the 3rd time, if you don't call me back, if I don't get in contact with you, we just cut them.
Yeah.
But we approach that the same way as rehabbing the house, with the same intensity with selling the house. Everything has equal weight. And the reason I believe that philosophy is because if you think about it, if you take any component out of the deal and it falls through, why are you not directing as much energy in that area? And what I mean by that is I'll see guys locally that have advertisements out with signs, right? They have this little ass sign, this little bandit sign that's
Yeah,
like 12
yeah,
inches, right? Way off the side of the fucking road, right? This guy just spent like $800 on these signs.
This probably used to be mine. Yeah.
But my point is, you can't read
Yeah.
it.
Right.
So, okay, you spend $800 and you may hit the Powerball and have that 1.2 billion, or you may have some big money lender, you may have all the knowledge in the world of real estate, but the fact that someone driving down the road at 60 miles an hour cannot read your sign means that they're not going to call you, which means
You
that
don't
you're
get to
not
do
going to
everything
get that
else.
deal.
Right.
So it's like, okay, make your sign decent size, have decent language on it so that people can instantly remember it. What does the person experience when they call you? I used to remember, like, locally, guys used to use the fucking Google Voice number. And it's like,
me.
okay.
That was me. I used to do that.
And it's like, okay, so this
Yeah.
guy is, I'm looking at it from a seller's perspective. Okay, this guy claims he can pay cash for my house and I want $200,000 for my house, but he's so cheap, he didn't have a fucking phone number.
Right.
So
Please wait while Google Voice. Say your name.
oh God,
Yeah,
please hold, like, you had to announce your name or something. Please state
Yeah,
your name
exactly.
or something. You know what I mean?
Man.
So what does the person experience when they call you? Do they get a live person? Like, when someone calls me, they get a live person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't matter. Like, right
Who
now,
is it
I'm
though?
talking,
If it's not you, I mean, if you're only working 2 hours a week, who picks up the phone? Do you have someone else do it?
So I have an
Okay.
answering service that I pay $120 a month. They take calls.
Got it.
And then it gets emailed to me, and then I send that email to someone else who in turn calls the person back to get it under contract. And they probably spend 4 hours a week in the real estate business. But the phone, what does the person experience when they call you? And then do you have, and this is a big thing as well, do you have the communication skills? Like, now you have so many people that are used to texting that they don't know how to spell words properly. They spell words phonetically, or they use a lot of slang. They talk like how they do online. So are you able to communicate with that 18-year-old kid that just inherited the house, just like that little old lady who's 85 years old? You have to be able to communicate with both and everybody in between, but they don't have the communication skills. So you have the good marketing, you have the way to field the call, but you don't have the communication skills. So now the deal falls through. Let's say you have all that, but you don't have the proper paperwork. Like that guy that had the contradictions.
Right.
Let's say you don't have the relationships with the title company, or you don't have the private lenders to get the money to buy the property. Let's say you don't have the contractors to fix the house. Let's say you don't have the realtor to sell it. My point is, if you take any of those people out, or any of those situations out of the equation, the deal falls through. So you have to have the same intensity for every aspect. And I'm kind of anal with that. Like, everything is kind of like, I'm not a perfectionist, but
no, yeah, I get that.
I gotta be a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just kind of like, when I get my signs, I'm like, okay, the font is good. It's a good size. You know, when we put them on the side of the road, I'm like, make sure you can see them. And you know what I mean? It's like, but I see guys that don't do that, where it's like, like locally, and I'm sure you felt subject to this because I did as well. You have guys that spend all this money on the sign, but then they get the flimsy steak, the little 99-cent steak that breaks in the wind.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, you just spent all this money, but now you can't read the damn thing. It's like, dude, spend for the quality steak so that people can, but they don't do it. And then but those guys kind of don't stay in the business very long anyway. Those are guys that, you know, they're on to insurance in 6 months, or photography or something.
Exactly.
They disappear.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And like, you know, we run Google Ads a lot, and the people who are the most successful take the lead management, the first phone call, super seriously, and they all pick up the phone. So 100% agree with that. I have a couple final questions for you. I think we'll kind of wrap it up here in a few minutes. I got to grab some dinner. I honestly, though, I want to talk to you for like 3 more hours, but we don't have the time to do it. But I do have a couple.
Stage 2. We can do part 2, baby.
All right, we'll do part 2. He said it here, so I'm holding you to it. We'll 100% do it. There's so much that you said that I'm like,
I have 22 hours of. Well, hold on. How many
150 hours a week you have free to
yeah,
whatever.
I only work 2 hours. So I know people think that's bullshit, but it's
no, I believe it 100%, man. Yeah, there's so much that you said. I'm like, man, do I really want to, like, just one-liners? I'm like, do I want to spend the next 20 minutes going into this? I'm like, but then he said this other thing. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So anyway, a couple final questions here. If someone put a gun to your head and you had 30 days to get a deal, otherwise they would kill you, what would you do if you had to get a deal within 30 days?
I would probably go to the worst I would probably, in Wilmington, as you know, is super violent. It's like the hood, and bullets fly. Like Wilmington, Delaware is the 5th most violent city in the United States, but people don't even realize, they don't even report the level of violence. But however, the city of Wilmington has a ton of vacant houses, which they even publish that list. There's 1,500 houses, vacant houses on that list. I would go to that list and I would contact every person. Now you're saying if it's life or death.
Life or death.
I would be one of those people, and out of those 1,500, I guarantee I would get a handful, and I would wholesale the shit out of it. I would get a house, because you can get those houses. Those houses are easy to buy, but they're hard to sell because of the numbers. So, but a lot of those houses are free and clear. They just have back taxes, or they have L&I, the license and inspection fees, or they have these small liens on them. Those are the houses where the person inherited it, but they don't even know they have it. It's their grandmom's house, and their grandmom died in 2000. They live in Idaho. They don't even know that they own the house anymore. And it's like, hey, look, your grandmom owned this house. Hey, look, I'll take it off your hand. I'll pay all the back tax, and I'll probably give you a little bit of money. It's free money to them because they didn't know they own the house. So I would probably wholesale a house if I had to do 30 days. But you didn't say, hold on. But the key was, you didn't say what I had to make.
No, I didn't say what you had to make. I didn't say what you had to make.
I could do a deal and make $1, and I'm still living. So
no, that's fair. What do you think you would make on average with those types of deals?
Profit more. See, wholesale, again, I don't wholesale a lot, but if I do wholesale, we like to be in the 30 to 50 range on wholesales.
Okay. So what would you think?
We want to be above that. So,
but with the list though, you were not going to make 50K on that list, you think, right?
20 all day though.
Okay.
Because I will be getting those houses. Those houses are probably worth like 70, 80 grand fixed. Even though they're abandoned, somebody's going to probably just throw a little bit of money, probably like 15, 20 grand just to get it presentable and Section 8 or rent it. And if I can get that house for 10 or 15,000, if I can wholesale it for 30, this guy puts 15 into it and it's worth 70, he's good.
Gotcha. My follow-up question was going to be, how would you do it without any money? But that's also the same thing, because it doesn't cost you any money to go get this list, right? That's basically free.
This is the thing that's going to may be surprising to you as well. And I say this sincerely. I've only put out money 4 times out of my pocket for money in my 23 years.
4 deals, to find deals, you mean?
And no, put out money to buy the house.
Oh, okay, got it.
So out of those 4, I lived in 2 of those houses.
Gotcha.
So so taking it back to me, when the $300 every 2 weeks, I didn't have any money. So right. I've never ever, true story, I've never ever given a seller an earnest money deposit. When I hear people, I gave the seller $1,000 deposit, $500 deposit, I'm like, fuck did you do that? Did they ask for that? Like, I've never had a seller ask for a deposit. So you gotta understand, I have literally no risk in any deal that I do, outside of if I'm rehabbing a house.
Right.
Because now I'm borrowing this money and I'm obligated to pay this money back. But outside of that, every rental I've ever done was been a subject to, where the person deeded the property to me and the loan stayed in their name, and I just made the payments. Every wholesale I did, I didn't give a deposit. I just got it under contract, and I had it under contract, not every, I don't want to say every for the year, but the majority of them, I have them under contract for an extended period of time, and I have more than enough time to unload it, and I just make what I can off of it. So I don't really put money out for deals. And again, I know that's, some people think that's bullshit, but it's only an issue if you bring it up. So if the sellers aren't asking for deposits, they want their problem solved. So I'm just solving their problem. They don't ask for a deposit. And if they did ask for a deposit, I said, well, Tim, what do you need a deposit for with it? Are you more concerned with getting this
right, understanding their
deposit,
needs,
or do you want to get this problem
right.
solved? You know what I mean? What do you want to do here? So I don't really run into that. But if you had no money, you should be able to do this business with no money anyway. But again, the YouTube thing, people think that they have to put out money. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to put out money to do the business. And I know you got to go, but this is another thing that I find it irks the shit out of me. And it's baffling to me. People think they can get into this business. They hear no money and they literally think they can run a business with no money. Like, they don't want to pay for advertising. They don't want to pay for any marketing. They don't want to pay for the answering service. They want the Google phone number because it's free. They want to get their paperwork online for free. And it's like, dude, like what other business is there in the world where you can go in and have no money invested? Like you have to, now that doesn't mean that you have to invest $100,000, but it's just baffling to me that people think that they can go from working at Starbucks, and then they go on YouTube and they get into this business and they think they're not going to have to invest any money. You're going to have to invest something.
How much do you think someone should start out with? I know it depends on the state, but like, what do you think?
$5,000.
And what would that be for?
Marketing. I would say a decent marketing campaign would be, I always suggest doing a combination. So I would do bandit signs. This is what I would do. 200 bandit signs would cost me probably now with the delivery is a little bit more because of gas prices. Call it $1,000. $1,000 will get me 200 bandit signs. I will put out 30 to 50 bandit signs every week without fail. Spread them around so it doesn't look like Las Vegas. Just spread them around. You got the guy that gets tired. Sign. It's like, dude, you got lazy as shit, yo.
Dude, I got called from the ex-mayor of Newark about my bandit sign once because I hired someone to put out bandit signs and he put them all over Main Street. I know most people don't know that, but you don't put bandit signs on Main Street. It's like a very public area. And the ex-mayor was like, you can't do this, so we're gonna find you $10,000. And I was like, Anyway. Yeah.
The News Journal actually wrote a story about me for my sign. I used to put out 100 signs every Friday without fail. Every single Friday night we would put out 100 signs. And then the News Journal wrote an article about me. And then it was the mayor of some city made a part of his marketing, made a part of his campaign. That was in a newspaper. They were taking my sign down. And people were like joking. I at the time, I didn't read the paper. People were like, dude, you see you're in a newspaper? Like, what are you talking about? They're like, dude, your sign is in a paper. I still have the article. But they're like, it's free marketing. At least you can see the phone number in there.
Exactly.
But
right. So bandit signs.
I would buy 100 signs. I would buy 200 signs. Would cost me $1,000. I would set up my phone. I would get my phone. The phone number would cost $40, unlimited. The answering service is $120. The mailbox, because I wouldn't want any mail coming to me directly. The mailbox would be $300. So call it, what is that? $500. So now I'm at $1,500. I would buy a mailing list, but I would focus on filtering that list properly. I would get a really, really solid list, whether it be absentee owners or foreclosures. Now, with the foreclosure, you have to know the laws in your state, because certain laws are in place where you can't not market to them, but there's always ways around stuff. But
so absentee owner, you think is a solid list, maybe with equity and age criteria with it.
Yeah, like I would filter it. I would do absentee owner. For us, we market to foreclosures a lot. Right. I have a guy that goes down to the courthouse every week. And he just pulls the list of people that got filed on. Now, in the state of Delaware, start to finish, if you do absolutely nothing, it takes about a year for you to get from the time they file foreclosure to the time you go to the sheriff's sale. It's about a year.
Gotcha.
They're usually 3 or 4 or 5 years behind by the time it even gets to that point. So, I mean, they owe 80 grand in back payments or whatever. So we actually go down, have somebody goes down and hand compiles that list, but you can get it online at, I think Realty Track has the same list. It's just not as fresh. They're like a month behind. But I would compile that list. I would contact, I get my yellow letters through the yellow letter lady, give her a plug, Christy King. Those letters are about $1, I think $1 with postage. I think, what is stamps now? 59 cents or something like that. With postage and the list and with the letter, you're like $1 and some change in. So I would probably get like 2,000 names, and then I would mail out 200 to 300 letters every week, consistently every week. I don't give a shit about the day of the week. Some people say I only mail on Mondays, I only mail on Wednesday. I don't give a shit about that, because the letter is going to go to Arizona or Montana, because these people don't even live here probably. And then I would just do a deal.
So this is like a 2-month game plan, right?
List, someone would eventually. Now the difficult part of it is, and I know this is kind of a thing that I don't want to say, I think you've talked about it. Some people get caught up in how much money does it take to equate a deal? How much money do I have to put out to equal one deal? And I don't really follow that philosophy, because you don't really know when this person's going to call you. I've had times where I've sent them a letter today and they call me summer of next year. They took the letter and they put it on their refrigerator, and they'll say, hey, I got your letter last year, but hey, I just decided to wait. I don't actually go, I know you're a techie guy and you got the spreadsheet and all. I
I
don't
got the
go back to
spreadsheets.
see when I mailed that letter to the person. I don't really give a shit. I'm just like, hey, you called. That's all I care about. But if you're sending out a substantial amount of mailings and your presence is out there with the bandit signs, again, not Las Vegas, but you have them spread around. 200 signs sounds like a lot, but again, I will put out 100 every Friday, and that wasn't even enough. A lot of them got taken down, of course, but I became the sign guy. I would probably have a magnet on the side of my car. For years, I did that. It cost you $80, put it back. Like, you have to tell the world that you're in the business. I used to have We Buy Houses shirts that I would wear. I had business cards. Business cards cost me $100, I think. I would put them in the gas station pumps. Whenever I got gas, or while I was pumping gas, I would put out like 20 cards, or I would stop at Wawa and put them up on the bulletin board. But you have to let the world know. I would probably have a Facebook presence because that's free, relatively. I would have some Facebook presence. I would probably talk to you about that whole internet, Google.
Yeah.
Because that's a good thing
Millennial
too.
stuff.
I'm not really into that,
Yeah.
but it works.
Yeah.
But you have to do a lot of little things to get the deals coming in, is my point. It's not one thing is just going to like be the floodgates. It's a lot of little things that you'll do. And then the calls will start trickling in, and then you'll start doing deals. But I would say $5,000 would be a good starting point. And then, again, that campaign, you got to realize that $5,000 is over a 10-week time frame, 8 to 10 weeks. So if you're doing 30 to 50 signs a week, that's 2 months. If you buy 2,000 names and you're mailing 200 to 300 letters a week, that's 10 weeks. That's over a 200 a month. So again, we're back to, okay, if I need to do 6 deals a year, okay, well, if I'm doing one deal over every 10 weeks, I'm kind of making my goal there.
Right.
And then add in the quality. So now if you go into a deal, let's say you have a minimum profit of, I want to make 20,000 a deal, but then that deal turns into 35,000. Now you're kind of ahead. So it's like, now you're chopping that tree down a little quicker. So now you don't got to do 6 deals, you got to do 5.
Why do you split that up between, I know this is like kind of a hypothetical situation, but like split up between, bandit signs and sending some mailers out? Because I preach the belief that you should do, when you're getting started, one channel. Only do one. Don't do a bunch of little things. Only do one. Stick with it for as long as it takes until it works, versus doing a couple. So I think both work, but like, I want to understand your philosophy, because you do a lot of things differently than me, and obviously it's working out for you. So curious, do you think it's, yeah?
I've always done multiple. I never did one thing. Like, even when I first started, even though I didn't have money, I had a credit card, and they used to have, I don't know if you remember the Shopper. I don't know if you were around back then. They used to have the Shopper magazine that came out every Friday. They would throw it in, the News Journal would throw it in. You would see it in people's driveways. It was like a free ad. It was like a free newspaper that came out. But I would run an ad in that paper, and it was like, I think it was like $40 a month or something. It was like $40, but it went to every house in Newcastle County. Like 20,000, 100,000 people went. It was free Shopper. So I got good with the lady there, and she would just bill my credit card $80 every month or whatever, $40 a month or whatever it was. So I did that. I always had that magnet on the side of my car. People laughed at me with the magnet, though. When I had the We Buy Houses magnet on the side of the car, I kind of didn't give a shit. I'm like, yo, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? But I got a deal out of it. Mm-hmm. I bought a house, subject to, mind you. My wife had took her sister to buy a car from Deals on Wheels. I don't know if you remember Deals on Wheels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like low level, like anybody, they can get anybody a car. My
dealership,
wife had, to get dealership, low level dealership. Well, my wife had took her sister there to get a car. She drove my truck, and the sales rep saw the We Buy Houses on there. But by the time she went to go get a pen to write the number down, my wife had left. So when my sister-in-law wound up getting a car. So when my wife came back to take her the next day to get the car, the lady was still there, and she was like, "Oh my God, thank God you came back, because I saw your sign. I didn't have enough time to write it down, and you came back, and I got that house free." It was I got it. It was like, I had the house for a couple years. I don't know what I made on it, whatever. But my point is, that little $50 magnet that I had on the side of my car, I got a deal out of it. So I always, from day one, did multiple things. I always had an ad in the Shopper. I did bandit signs, but I did little cheapy stuff. Like,
right.
I tried a radio ad one time that was ungodly expensive. I think that was like $600 a month. I did do a deal off of it, when we made like 6 figures on it, so that it paid for itself. But I only got that one deal out of it, so it was it worth it? Yes, but bang for your buck. I would have liked to do a lot of more deals out of it. Didn't justify it. I used to run an ad in the phone book. That was ungodly expensive. I never got anything out of that. So I always kind of did look like a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? But I think that's normal though. Like Walmart doesn't just advertise in
Yeah,
one place.
no,
I mean,
that's true.
like
That's
you, for
true.
example, like I don't think you've ever just done one thing. In the time that I've known you, I always got a letter from you. I always saw your presence on social media, whether it be forums like you're chiming in or you're saying something. I always saw like the little bounty thing on my computer. You know what I mean? Serious though, but I
Yeah,
don't think. I mean, I know
yeah,
you're saying that you believe that, but I don't think you've ever really practiced that to that level. I think if you think back, you always did. But see, that doesn't necessarily have to equate to money. Like you could be telling the
right.
world that you're in the real estate business. That's still marketing yourself. You're still on
It's a
Facebook
good point.
saying, "Hey, look, I buy houses. Hey, look, if anybody," because I remember you had the YouTube video.
Yeah, I put the for the sellers, like we buy,
Yeah, and
inherited properties. Yeah, and
So I think
it's a
you've
good
always
point.
done a multitude of things. They
That's
they may
true.
have been different things, but you always. I mean, I don't know. Like I don't.
No, you're right. I did some direct mail when I got started, probably 3 to 4 different lists. I did Google Ads. I did my website, which was kind of free. I built it like kind of ran it myself. So that's
My
SEO. I did do YouTube as well. And I was pretty active on Facebook. So you are correct. You have disproven that theory. And I guess in my mind, I was the assumption of like investment of money, but there's investment of time as well.
I mean, I
So
remember you used
yeah,
to chime in a lot on forums, like
I would. Yep. Bigger
Golden
pockets
Op. I
and
remember it was like I always remember
yeah,
Golden Op,
that's
Golden
my
Op.
golden off. That's my business, man.
Do you still have
Um,
that?
that's technically my I don't it's not how I brand it, but that's technically the business. My name is still Golden Off Real Estate Solutions.
Okay.
Even for my agency, I haven't it's all under the same umbrella. I gotta like figure that out paperwork, get that better. But yeah, Golden Op, man, that's still technically the business. So
Yeah, I
um
remember you were kind of on Facebook a lot. I remember I was impressed at the amount of presence that you had in relation to your age.
mm,
Like I knew you were a younger guy because I think I don't know, you 24, 23, 24 years old or something like that.
yeah,
And you were kind of like me, like it seemed like you were like all in, like I'm doing this. Different style than me, but you were still kind of out there, like talking, and you were very friendly. I remember you, and I think you played off of your youthfulness.
I did as a
I think you,
positive.
yeah,
Yes,
I think that was a positive thing. Like you took that, you made that to your advantage of, hey, look, I may look young, but hey, look, I know what I'm doing. Or hey, look, I may look young, but hey, look, I can still help you. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I remember you were doing some things that I thought were different, like you did the testimonials. I remember you would do testimonials with sellers. I was like, okay, that's different. That's a little different, you know what I mean? But those were things that were probably getting you additional deals as well, because someone would probably read that
right.
testimonial or hear the testimonial and be like, oh, he did help this elderly couple get into their whatever house in Florida or whatever. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And it just shows that there's more than one way to do business in real estate. There's no one right way, right? I do it
nah.
my own way, you do your own way, and it works.
There's
The
more. There's
last,
no. And
yeah,
again, the competition thing. I never got caught up in that because I always feel
right.
like there's more than enough for everybody. If something doesn't work for me, like again, I don't fool with multifamily. So I knew if multifamilies was your thing, if a seller called me, I would say, well, I don't do multifamilies, but I know a guy that can help you. Here's his number, or I can have him give you a call. There's enough. There's enough out there for us all to eat. Now, a
Right.
lot of guys don't practice that. They're kind of like sharks, where they feel like if I can't get the deal, I don't want you to get it. Which I never understood that mentality. Um, and that goes back to why I'm kind of the way I am now, because when I first started, no one was willing to help me, and I made a vow to myself. I was like, man, I'm never going to be that guy where it's like somebody calls me and asks me for help, I'm just going to shoot them down. However, the problem with that now is that
Entitlement.
I'm more than willing to help somebody, but it's kind of like a weird balance where I think there needs to be some type of compensation there.
Right.
Like I said with that deal, I feel kind of weird that I was able to help that chick negotiate that deal, but then she booted me out of the deal. And not that it's not so much about the money, it's about the principle of it, where it's like,
Right.
hey, look, Jason, you did help me out. Hey, let me slide you a gift card or something or whatever. But
Something, yeah.
you know what I mean? But so now I don't really care about the money so much. And God bless her. She made money. Unfortunately, I don't see her being a long-termer. I don't see her
And that's the
being,
trade-off that she's make by doing that. That's
yeah,
the
I
trade-off,
don't see
right?
her
So
being somebody that's going to be in this, for, years to come. I think you have to have a lot of morality. And again, I approach deals that, yes, the money is important, but at the end of the day, I'm helping this person out. Like with Cindy, with the I kind of glossed over, but the lady with the need the prosthetic leg, she actually was willing to take less money. So we had her house under contract, I think, for like 100. No, I'm sorry, 95. We were wholesaling it, and she got so eager with wanting to get this whole thing resolved that she actually called us up and she said, "Look, I'll be willing to take 70 just to get this done." Now, somebody else may have been like, "Shit, she's dropping 25 grand. Let's get that paperwork renegotiated." We didn't do that. We said, "Hey, look, I know you need this money for what you need it for. We'll just keep you at the 95." And that woman was in tears. Now, somebody else may be like, "Man, you walk for $25,000. It's not really about the money so much, man. It's the money. I'm helping this person out, and I'm helping this person's family out." Now, I don't know if she's still alive, but I know I was able to bring some joy to her life, and it's not, but you got these guys out there that ain't like that, man. They're just like, they trying to, if you can't get it, if I can't get it, I don't want you to get it. I'm going to badmouth you. And it's like, okay, whatever, man, but we're long-termers, man. I'm sure in your journey, you've been able to determine people that are going to be in this a long time. Like I knew when I first met you, you're going to be in this a long time, man. You just had good morals, good integrity. You're polite, you're friendly. You're jokey, you have a good sense of humor. You wasn't this like guy that's like, man, I just want to get out here and just make money and shit on people. You never carried it like, so, and that's why you're where you're at now. Look at where you're at now. You moved away. You got this big podcast thing and the PP, whatever, what is it? PPC or whatever?
PP. Tim's PP. Yeah, PPC. Yeah, exactly.
PPC.
Google Ads. Yeah. Is there anything, we'll wrap it with this. Any final thing that I didn't ask you that you just wanted to cover as a final send off at all?
I would say the real estate business is life changing. It's a wonderful business for me. It's allowed me to obtain the unthinkable. Again, you're talking to a guy that grew up poor. I shared a room with my brother, sleeping in a bunk bed until I graduated. I graduated from high school when I was 17. So I never had my own space. To now I live in an 11,000 square foot house. My kids got their own whatever. They get, to this day, I've never been to a barbershop, even though I don't have the need to go.
Yeah.
But we couldn't afford to go to barbershops. We didn't have money for that. So my mom cut my hair, but my kids are well taken care of. They're cultured. They've been out of the country. They've been to other countries. They've experienced different restaurants and foods. I've been able to build a good life with my wife, and all of that comes from the real estate business. Like, again, my son is special needs. So we've been able to I couldn't imagine if I had a 9-to-5 or I had some kind of crazy job, how that would have affected my son. Like, you understand? So, okay, so I left corporate America September 22nd, 2004. My son was 9 months old when I left. My other son was born in 2006. So he's never known me to not be around. Like, I've always taken him to school. I've always picked him up from school. I've always gone, taken him, whatever. So to him, he thinks everybody lives like that. I'm like, nah, man, some people work like fucking
He's got a
14
hours
all day. You know what I mean? So, but the real estate has allowed that freedom. And I do take it for granted sometimes. It's been so long since I've been in the rat race, as I call it. But it has given me the freedoms to build relationships and just spend time with people, man. Like, you think about it, like your life now, like, and your circle is going to change with time. The higher up you go on the chain, the smaller that circle gets. You're going to have people that are in your life when you're low at the bottom, and then when you get higher up, they're not going to be around anymore for whatever reason. They don't feel comfortable being around you. But you think about it, like, you can just go, the freedoms that it allows you. If you want to go have lunch tomorrow at 2:00, you can do it. You don't have to ask permission. Or if you want to take a trip next week, you don't have to ask your boss, can you get off? It's like the real estate allows all those things. And you truly are performing a service for the world. I mean, you think about all the houses that you've done in your life, in your career, regardless of what someone may believe, they benefited from your involvement in their life, whether they got money. The biggest testimony that I ever got that was tear jerking to me, we did a deal for this lady. It was in the hood, and it was a tree going through the middle of the house. Remember, it was like, Jesus, what the fuck is this? And the lady had inherited the house. It was her dad's house. Her dad had passed away, and this was the final thing that was settling the estate. And we made like $4,000 on it or something, $5. We didn't make a ton of money. It was like just whatever. And I remember that lady called me, and she was on the phone crying. She said, "Thank you so much for helping me. This has finally allowed me to have closure with my father's passing." Mm-hmm. Now, somebody else may view that as, man, you didn't really make any money, but what did I do for this woman? I was able to help this woman. I literally was in tears when she called me. And it's not always about the money, man. You're helping people, man. And every deal that you've done and will do in one way, shape, or form will help somebody. It will either help somebody get into a house. All my rentals, I don't give a shit about your credit, right? Like if you came to me and if I have a conversation with you and you sound like a decent person, I don't give a shit whether you had bankruptcy or whether you had to file you lost your house in foreclosure. Or does Tim have the ability to make the payment to live here? I'll give you a shot. That lady that I talked to with the 7 kids today, I told her, I said, hey, I'm giving you a shot, yo. Like, it's up to you. I said, but the solution is easy. Go to work. When you get paid, pay me. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty simple. Don't go get your nails done. Don't go get your hair done. You know what I mean? But my point is, that woman even said, I don't think I'm going to be able to find another place to live because of her credit or her income or whatever it is. I'm helping that woman in one way, shape, or form. Every rental that you have, you're helping somebody. You're taking somebody off the street, or every deal you do, you're helping somebody resolve whatever personal issue that they have going on. So the real estate business but you have to do it the right way. I think you have to, right. My advice would always be partner up with someone local that's successful. It's hard for me because I'm a Charlie. I'm behind the scenes. Yeah. It's hard to kind of find me, but find someone local who's doing what you want to do. And whether you got to give them the lion's share of the deal, if you go to them and you got to give them 80% of the deal, who gives a shit? You're learning the business. Right. And then you'll build those relationships and be able to be successful.
I 100% agree. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's how I met you.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I was spamming everybody when I got started. I was like, hey, help me. And I ended up finding a guy. I don't even think he's in the business anymore, but he knew how to do deals, and I split it with him, and I didn't care. So Jason, thank you so much for hopping on the call today. Appreciate it. And we will definitely do this again soon. I have you on camera saying it, so you got time. So we'll do it again. And I really appreciate you hopping on today.
Yeah, man, we'll do a part 2. I'm an open book, man. Any question you have, I'm always like willing. I'm not one of these guys that like hoards information. I'm probably too much of an open book. But any question you have, man, I don't know how the whole thing works. Like if you have people to ask you questions that they want other people to answer, I'm open to that. You're a good dude, man. So anything I can do to help you in the industry.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Appreciate it, Jason. Well, take care of yourself. And thanks everybody for listening today. Take care, Jason.